All my friends were playing with Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys. I was playing with Porsche parts.
Okay, well, I'm with Rod Emory from Emory Motorsport. Now, Rod is the original outlaw, the original Porsche outlaw, and he's done some incredible work, and I follow him online and on Instagram and Facebook. So, Rod, welcome to Brian Tanti's workshop. I just want to run us through what it is that you're doing here today.
Yeah, well, as you know, I usually take these little 356s and kind of give them a new life.
Yeah.
For years I've been taking the 911 components, like early short wheelbase 911 suspension and 901 gearbox, and integrating them into a 356. This car was a little different approach. Now that we have technology and we have the ability to 3D scan stuff and digitally kind of look at how things would interact, I scanned a 964, so like a 90 to 94 911. And then a 356. This is a 1960 356 coupe. Okay. And I took the two bodies and digitally and figured out where they would merge and intersect. And then cut all of the suspension pickup points and the tunnel and rear seat area out of the 964 so that I could bring them into the bottom of the 356.
Okay.
The reason I did it is Momo, the wheel company, came to me and they said, Rod, we want a 356 that drives a little bit more like a modern touring car, something with, coilover suspension and I could have gone the route of putting A-arm suspension and all that stuff, but my goal in everything that I do is to use as many Porsche parts as possible, as much Porsche DNA. So, taking stuff from whatever models I can and kind of morphing them into a 356 chassis. So what we end up with is a car that ultimately will have, a 2.6 liter twin turbo, 4-cylinder 911.
Twin turbo.
On
this wheelbase?
On this wheelbase. So this wheelbase is actually halfway between a 356 and a 964. So it's only about 3 inches shorter than a 964. But you end up with a platform that weighs 2,400 pounds, 350 horsepower, coilovers, center lock hubs. So it'll still have the look and feel of a 356, but the drivability of a newer 911.
Okay.
And so there's a special aluminum nose and tail that I'm building for it in the workshop.
Okay.
That it will remove, kind of like a 935.
Okay.
And just lots of fun stuff.
Oh, now, Rod, I understand you're like a second generation coach builder. Your father started the business, or your grandfather started the business?
My grandfather, Neil Emory, had a shop called Valley Custom Shop in the 40s and 50s in Burbank, California. And he was really one of the pioneers of channeling and sectioning cars. Where a lot of the other builders at the time were chopping them, he was taking kind of the hard route, taking it out of the center or channeling the body over the frame. He was in that business until 62, and then he went to work for a Porsche dealership in Newport Beach to do all of their repairs, because these 356s are unibody, so just the average body man struggles trying to get the panels right.
Correct.
And he was a coach builder, so he knew how to rework the metal, and so as these 356s were smashed front and rear, he was fixing them. So I came around a few years later. My father, Gary Emory, was the parts manager at the dealership. My grandfather ran the body shop at the dealership, and I was the kid running around playing when I was a kid, looking at all these Porsche parts, thinking, what can I do with them? All my friends were playing with Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys. I was playing with Porsche parts. So, so when I was about 10 years old, I was in the workshop with my grandfather. He taught me how to weld and taught me kind of aesthetically how to make stuff work. And then when I was 14, my dad and I bought a 1953 356. And my dad says, this is your car. Do what you want with it. And I restored it to like a vintage racing spec, so I could go race it. It took me 2 years to do it. When I was 16, I started vintage racing it. And that was the beginning of all of this. I've built about 150 cars since 1990 is when I really started professionally building cars. And everything from restoring significant cars. I restored Porsche's first winning car at Le Mans.
I was looking at some of the photos there. It's pretty impressive.
That was a lot of research and so that was a multi-year project. So I restored Porsche's first race car. I've also done a 906 and a 904 and some other cars. But my kind of primary love is these 356s and to kind of push the envelope and evolve the cars beyond where Porsche stopped in 65.
Well, it's a beautiful example of coach building and coach work. And I noticed you've featured your wheeling machine very heavily within the context of your display. Now, I understand that here in America, the power hammer is very popular, but you're strictly a wheel guy?
Yeah, so, when my grandfather back in the day, he did all of his work with a wood stump.
Okay.
And, some beater bags and hammers. And so when I grew up around him, he didn't have any power hammers. He had one CP riveter that was converted to a plenishing hammer.
Okay.
But everything else was, pretty rudimentary, tools. When I first started, when I was about 16, 18 years old, I got a home-built English wheel and started on that. And then as I started buying tools, I've never graduated to a power hammer because for one, I've never had the space and just didn't have the money to buy one. But I went from I got an English wheel, I got an old Liebert shear, and a Polmax and one Urco kick shrinker and stretcher, and that's kind of for about 20 years. That's been
the staple.
That's been the
Within every coach building shop, I always think the wheeling machine is like the cornerstone of that shop, and you can get by with that and a stump. And that does pretty much everything,
It does. It takes a little longer, and you got to finish it a little bit more, But I won't say that I won't get a power hammer. I'd love to have one. And now that there's so many people making them again, I think it makes them more accessible.
Yeah.
But my roots go back to stumps and wheels, and.
But now recently, I saw that you were in the south of France.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that was all about?
We all utilize Instagram as a platform to kind of communicate and get to know each other and share our works. Well, Instagram recognized that I had a pretty good little following of car enthusiasts, but also craftsmen, and so they reached out to me and asked if I would come to France and do a small demonstration on kind of what I do. And so it was the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity.
Okay.
So it's a big event that kind of like SEMA is, but it's for media professionals and advertising. And they featured people from some different genres. So they had Kelly Slater, who's a professional surfer.
Yep.
They had another lady that does painting, and so I was the guy that they reached out to for automotive and kind of craftsmanship, which was an honor.
Absolutely,
it was huge. And so my son and I went to France, and we set up some of our tools, and we had part of a car there, and then 15,000 people were able to make their way through my booth and ask me questions, and I did some hand louvering on some panels, and like one of these in aluminum, and just shared kind of the old school techniques with people, because as schools don't have the trades, in the schools anymore. And so unless guys like you and I get out there and expose the next generation to this type of work, it's gonna be lost. And I was fortunate as a kid to have my grandfather to mentor me, and to have craftsmen kind of take me under their wing, and I think it's our responsibility to pay that forward so that the craft doesn't get lost. And Instagram made that an opportunity, which was. And
what do you get from being at an event like SEMA? What does SEMA mean to you?
SEMA really is about getting together and communicating with people. I think for me, I've got a pretty big backlog of work, so this isn't a place for me to
it's not about procuring work.
No, it's not about me finding a new customer. This is about me having an opportunity to meet guys like you in person, and to get together, and then also share some of our techniques and kind of what we do. That's why for me, I wanted to bring a car that was not polished and this is all the original lead that's in it. I wanted to show people that when we start with a car, it's rough. You can see this thing had water damage, and I haven't done any of the outside body yet. I've been focusing on the chassis. But we all have to go through. What tends to happen, as you know, on Instagram, is everybody puts only their best work. And people don't realize that there were 1,000 hours behind the scenes.
That's right.
To get to that.
Absolutely.
Instagram finish.
And I think the interesting thing is that when you're looking at something like this, you're only seeing about 30% of the work that actually goes into the project. They're that labour intensive. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be with Rod. And thanks very much, Rod, for
spending
some time with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.